All right, and welcome back to the Lavicast. I'm your host, Lavi Ray. I'm here once again with my co-hosts, Derpida and Ian Waffles. How are you guys doing today?
Good.
Hey,
You?
doing great. Yeah, go ahead, Derp.
Um, oh, all right, I'm doing fine myself. So today we're going to be doing a little bit of a catch-up. Today we're going to be covering not only the most recent Sonic the Hedgehog annual coming from IDW, but we're also going to be covering issues 76 through 79. So today we're going to be starting out with the annual. So the annual today covers three chapters. One is dealing with the fallout from issue 75, the everything that happened with the race, entire the entire arc, and seeing it from Surge and Kit's perspective, seeing about what they're going to do. And let's just go ahead and jump into that chapter first. So
Alrighty.
this chapter starts with these two trying to stop a trolley from going out of control. But since these two are, there's no nice way to put it, idiots, they end up making things a little bit, they end up making things worse and just being
Well, they're
chaotic
just
lunatic.
they're just inexperienced, Lavi.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another way to say idiots. So they end up kind of causing more. They end up causing a little bit more problems, and even though they end up stopping the thing from spiraling out, they end up almost getting other people hurt in the process. And when people are pointing that out, Surge throws a fit. They end up going back home and trying to recoup and figure out what they're going to do next. And they end up whining about the fact of like, oh, Sonic, everyone here is so pathetic when Sonic was trying to when Sonic was trying to save everybody, they were relying on him to like carry them out of the place. How dare they're just so pathetic and stuff. Why can't we get that type of adoration? So that's where they come up with the brilliant idea of they're going to cause problems so that they can end up getting more stuff. So they can end up getting all of the praise and adoration as heroes. So and as they end up getting that praise and adoration, they'll be able to replace Sonic and Tails and show that they're going to be the new heroes, whether we like it or not. So here's the thing, and guys, feel free to push back on me about this. I need Flynn to stop trying to be meta. I need him to stop trying to
You
do
didn't
stuff.
you didn't like it when Flynn said Sonic Cycle.
No, because that's fucking stupid. This is not like I know I piss off IDW fans, and not just because I'm the big brain, but because I do not try to overly value the emotional content and the and other elements where I'm just looking at brass tacks about what are you communicating, what are you going for, what is this, and what are you ultimately trying to say. I don't. Even if you're like, oh, I can feel nice and good about this. I feel nice and good when stuff makes sense and is actually funny. And having characters be so ass backwards and try and pretend like they're rebels, but still, ironically, still giving into the same brainwashing that Starline ended up placing on them in the first place, really just kind of makes me go like, what are we trying to do with these guys? Because they ultimately fail at doing anything to contrast Sonic and Tails in any meaningful way. It's more like, what if we tried making Sonic and Tails, but they were incompetent? And I'm like, guys, feel free to jump in. Like, what is like a how are these guys just do not work in this story to any degree, not just here, but in general, because the entire story seems to be about this time, especially since like it seems like Flynn and Stanley are constantly at ends with each other. Like Stanley wants to try to play into the fact that these two are traumatized, are very mentally broken, and when even though they try to put up a good face and they try to be like rebellious and stuff, the second anyone pushes back on them or the second they get any type of conflict, they, especially Surge, she'll immediately fall into herself and just be as pathetic as possible, while Flynn still wants these two to try to be some weird commentary on the Sonic cycle and still wants them to be like some weird half thought out anti-hero villain ass type characters. And not only do neither element work individually, they don't work together. Like,
Right.
I can go a little bit more later, but
yeah, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna
No,
say. So you would say like the big problem with them is they feel very aimless, and what they are kind of trying to do feels very like Like it's like it hasn't gone anywhere. I mean, when was Surge and Kit introduced? That was like pre-50, right?
Issue 50.
Yes. Yeah, they got a whole miniseries to them.
Yeah, so they've been around for quite a while, and ultimately it kind of just feels like they've been spinning in circles, but not in a way that it feels like, oh, like they've fallen from grace. They've fallen from like this character who was doing this, and now we're watching their descent and we want them to come back. Like their whole character has always been that they're spiraling. And every time they spiral, they never seem to spiral into anything that sticks. And therefore, like, there's nothing to like grasp onto or like get invested. So like whenever it's like, oh man, Surge is gonna like cause problems so she can be a hero. The most I can really get out of that is if I think like from a meta perspective of like, oh, maybe by doing that, she'll learn that she actually wants to be a hero for good reasons and she'll be a good guy. But nobody in the universe cares about Surge and Kit. Like Sonic, you know, lip service cares, and that he's like, well, you know, I want everyone to do well and like, you know, have a wife and kids and a car and a dog, you know, like it's very like it's very impersonal in what he cares about. So therefore you're only really invested in them, and they just kind of exist in their own little bubble, their own little self-destructive bubble that I don't find very compelling or interesting at all. And they're because we're just doing the same thing for them over and over and over again. So yeah. That's kind of my general thought on them, but I don't know if you wanted to, if you had any thoughts on that, Derp.
Yeah.
My only additional thoughts here, because I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Like at this point, I'm already so tired of these characters that I want them to be dead. But that would be mean-spirited since they are victims. So then there's option B, which is just make them good people, redeemed, and just like I don't know, have them hang out and just be the next like woobies like
So here's the thing, Derp. I'm actually going to back you up. I don't know if I want them dead, but they need to be retired. And I say that
just
not
push them to the side. Just put them in the background.
I need them. No, I need them to be retired. Not in the sense of them getting killed. I need them to get mentally broken. Not because like
wow. Isn't that just worse though?
Depends. Oh, can be. But here's what I mean. When I mean mentally broken, I mean in the sense of I need someone. One of the big problems with the series is that there's no functional antagonist in the story. Like Eggman hasn't been an actual threat since you can kind of make a case for urban warfare, but really it was Metal Virus, and even that half of it, he was just so incompetent he didn't even do that properly. And everyone else has either just been trying to be like a diet version of him to some degree, and it still doesn't work. These two seem to be like the series' weird attempt of trying to be like, what if Shadow was a girl and incompetent? Or what if we had Scourge, but is also incredibly incompetent? And
don't use that one. Don't use that one.
What if she was Scourge? What if we had Scourge, but she was a girl and incompetent?
Don't double down. Don't double down. You're exaggerating.
I'm sorry. No. Like, as much as I'm trying to, like, I want to try to make sure that when I make cases about the series being shit, both here and on Twitter, and on Blue Sky, whatever, I want to make sure that I'm trying to be as I don't want to bully people into into believing I'm right. I want to just be able to make my case and try to be as sympathetic as possible. But I'm going to call it like I see it. She is Scourge. She is meant to be an incompetent version of Scourge, and I don't know. What's wrong?
I don't know. I just feel like Scourge was like a lot closer to just kind of being his own like thing, and I think Surge is also just like her own thing. Like even though I feel like the similarities are a lot more like surface level than it's a funny meme. You got like the new the rival that's kind of like take on Sonic. Like
they're both Waffles. Please feel free to check me on this. They're both meant to be green punk style rivals who have a weird rivalry with Sonic that boils down to some weird existential identity crisis about how they view themselves towards Sonic, and they constantly make that issue everyone else's problem.
Yeah, so we're basing on because I think you're not to be the fence rider. I think you're both right, because everything you just said, Lava, is correct. I think what I'm guessing, Derp, you mean is like obviously the specifics of their backstories are very different, and things like that, and that is true. But I think what Lava is getting at is just more so like the function they serve towards Sonic is in a similar wheelhouse. Like they're very much reaching for a similar thing. Because everything you just said is true. The nuances of that are very different, and that can obviously change things for people. But I get the idea of what you're going for. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm not saying there aren't differences. There are obviously differences. One is named Scourge, the other is named Surge. They both have very different backstories and how they end up turning into like a weird-esque copy of Sonic to some degree. Obviously, there are differences. My point is when it comes to a narrative sense and why they would be, why they're designed like this in the first place, and like Waffle said, what they're meant to reflect on Sonic is the same thing, and that's what ultimately matters. And in this context, that's what ultimately matters.
Right, because obviously Surge also, like, whether or not you think it was done well, Evan Stanley, I think, and a lot of people have talked about, like, they're trying to deal with the idea of, like Surge's, like, things with, like, the, what is it, the abuse of, like, Starline and all that stuff. Obviously, Scourge had, like, a little bit of that in his backstory, but it wasn't, like, a main focus. So those things are different. But, yeah, as far as their function, yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
So... But yeah, I mean, regardless of that, do you think, do you have anything else for this story?
I just think it's a shame that Evan Stanley's like trying to do a lot of creative work to try and get these characters in a new, personally feeling like more interesting direction with them. Like, even if it is like, oh no, they're like being adored by the public, they might take this the wrong way and just start becoming like show-offs and whatnot. Like even though I feel in my cynical brain that it could go like a bad way, like I want to see them get happy. I want to see them like in a good place, and it's just sad to see all of like Evan Stanley's work be like twisted and contorted as Ian Flynn walks into the room and he's like, yes, and then Surge and Kit decide, let's be terrorists to cause our own public problems, and then we'll save the people ourselves.
Okay, so let me wrap up a point. Let me follow that up, and let's wrap up a point I was trying to make about how I want these two to end.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. Dirk, to an extent that these two, that Stanley and Flynn are clearly at ends with each other when it comes to how they want to write these characters, but it's not too distant. Like, yes, Flynn is definitely going in a different direction with them here than they were where they were in issue 75. But they were still meant to be these aimless, reckless crash outs that they were at the end of 75 as well. So this isn't that off brand. Now, whether or not Stanley was trying to redeem them or not, or Flynn came in and said like, no, you need to start keeping them as evil, weird, anti-hero characters, whatever. I don't know whichever. I don't know what the behind the scenes are to that degree. What I'm going to say is here, at the end of the day, they're still written to be this much of a mess, regardless of either direction. Now, the reason I say that I want them to get broken and retired instead of being made into quote unquote good aligned characters is because you can't do anything with good aligned. Do anything with them as good aligned characters.
We do have an already extremely bloated cast that doesn't really get to be used to its full potential because it's already spending a lot of its time on the side characters, which is finally being changed with the latest asterisk question mark.
We'll get to that. But when it comes to these two, it's still, because the thing is, when you're adding good aligned characters, it's not just about adding into your repertoire. When you're making good aligned characters, especially when you're focusing on the story from a hero's perspective, it should be about not just about adding to your numbers, but adding different perspectives that are meant to help out with developing the main characters to a certain extent. These two have absolutely zero chemistry with anyone else in the group. There's no reason why these two want to be around.
But don't they have chemistry with like Amy?
No. I know Twitter is trying to gaslight themselves into having more.
But the shippers say they have so much.
The shippers are idiots. The shippers are idiots on this front. I've seen people try to make cases for.
Doesn't
Huh?
Surge have a lot of chemistry with Sonic?
No,
but the shippers say otherwise.
The shippers are idiots on this front.
What about Kit and Tails?
Moving on, the whole point about the whole point is when it comes to these two, they don't benefit. There's no reason to add them into the cast. They don't have a motivation, personality, or worldview that would help to develop Sonic or anyone else in the story. The only reason to bring them in as good line characters is because you think they're cute and want them to have a happy ending. But the problem is, their happy ending isn't continuing to do this. This is the reason why I said that I do need them to get broken, not because of like some sadistic nature inside of me. It's more they need to get a proper understanding about how
a reality check.
They need a reality check. They need to understand how stupid it is to continue to act like this in the first place, and they need an adult to come in to just ultimately to give them that reality check to make them realize, no, act like this and is only going to end up getting your ass kicked once you end up running into a bigger, badder threat. In short, they are Drake, and they need a Kendrick to come in and eco check them. So,
and not to go into fan fiction territory, but if you could just pick a character, who do you think would be actually like you don't have to write the story in your head of how it would come to be, but who's a character you think could lead them to that, or even if you can't think of anyone, just pick a random character that you think would be cool to do that in the story.
Well, I was thinking earlier, it would be nice if Amy tried to open up to them, because her whole thing is like, oh, I want to spread love and be happy and make people happy and smile. That's her frontiers arc now, I guess, going forward.
Yeah.
And it would be nice to see Amy trying to open up to these two characters, maybe lead them on a journey, but maybe they do something that breaks her trust, and she she has like a upset moment where she's like, I believed in you two. We had this whole adventure together, and you broke my heart, and I think you two are like shallow, awful, like pieces of trash, and I hate you. I don't want to see you guys again. And that's like the one person that believed in us has just turned her back on us, and it's like, damn, we're kind of jerks. I want to say sorry to Amy.
Yeah, I see what you mean. No, I can see how that could. I don't know if.
I
like the idea.
Popped in my head like 10 minutes ago.
No, I mean I like the idea though, because I mean, regardless of if it's Amy or not, that would be a way you could
for
do
her
it.
Character with Frontiers set that up. Like, why not play with that element just a little bit? But then you add some drama, and then you get like a little bit of an emotional climax.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. Did you have one more?
No, yeah. My suggestion is more they need to get what I like to call the kid treatment. If you're familiar with one, the Shanks treatment that Kid got a couple of years ago. The idea is, if we'll just go with Shadow because that's the best fit. I wouldn't want it to be Shadow. One, he gets too much of the quote unquote villain treatment already as is, and honestly, I don't want to go into fan fiction territory. But my whole point is we need new villains. Like, that's half the problem. Like, I understand.
So you think like a new threat could come in and kind of show them that they are way beyond or like overextending themselves, basically.
But not just overextending themselves. They are. This kind of behavior is only going to set. This kind of behavior is only going to sets you up to get wrecked by someone bigger and badder than you. The only reason that they're able to get away with doing half of this stuff right now is because, one, the characters are written to be idiots, and two, this is the Fisher Price universe version of this universe.
But we already had another villain. His name was the Possum dude.
Yeah, Clutch.
We'll get to him.
Yeah, we're getting to him, and trust me, he's not going. That's the problem. This is the whole idea of the whole reason why I would want a villain to come in and ultimately wreck their shit is not just about setting up new villains and antagonists for like the actual main characters, but more specifically because I want to try to bring some levity to this mindset. Because at the end of the day, this story is meant to be for kids, not in the sense that it's just meant to be simple, but also in the sense of you want to try to give kids proper ideas about how the world works and what kind of behaviors you have. Like, yes, it's true and could be very like cute and charming, cute and wholesome if like they end up like wrecking Amy's trust, but Amy's trust while they're trying to do all this crash out stuff. My point is, I don't want to like just give on that. Just set up a relationship, set up a cute relationship that just for them to wreck it. I want to ultimately have them suffer the consequences of acting like this, the direct consequences of acting like this in an action setting. And The whole thing I would want them to try to do is to do the exact same thing of like, we want to try causing so much mayhem, we want to try causing all this destruction, maybe for like some like anti-villain type of character who actually is meant to be like trying to carry themselves as like some
Okay,
I don't want to
like you.
Well,
these are like bad guys, but you want an even worser guy to show up, like that kind of thing.
in a I don't want to frame it like that. The whole point, I'm not a big fan of the framing. The whole point here is more about, I want to ultimately establish that this kind of like, I'm going to be like some cute little troublemaker who's looking to try to start stuff. I don't want to give this type of stuff any type of air that it only matters just because you end up disarming some trust. When you act like this, you are setting yourself up to piss off the wrong kind of people. And when you end up doing that, you can end up dealing with the direct physical consequences from that in the first place. But there's another reason I want to do that. The problem with that kind of story, the reason why I don't want to do the story where they just end up like realizing, oh, if I act like this, I end up like wrecking someone's trust. That's only really going to set them up to try to get like some weird redemption arc so they can at least be neutral or whatever. The whole point here is I want them to understand acting like this is wrong and they need to leave. They need to leave and ultimately retire, because the whole point here is not about just about punishing them, but it's about giving them a proper exit. Because the whole problem with their stories overall is that it's not about them even being functional bad guys. It's just about enjoying their suffering and misery and their incompetence the entire time. And I'm like,
but
that's
you don't know. Flynn and Evan might have a plan.
They've been fucking around with them for 25 issues in a miniseries. They clearly do not, and they constantly end up contradicting each other.
Let them cook. Let them cook. Look how
I let them cook for 25 issues. They don't. I don't want to stick on this.
All right, go away.
look at how many.
Yeah, let's. I know you're trying to. No, the whole point here is not about trying to put them down. The whole point here is about giving them explicitly not only setting up actual antagonists so we can move the story forward and get it back on point, but also specifically to give these guys a proper exit as to why they want to leave in the first place. Because we constantly keep trying to set them up as like, oh yeah, we're going to be big and bad. But the second anyone with any amount of confidence comes towards them and actually pushes them to any degree, Scourge ends up falling over and just becoming pathetic. And Kit ends up coming up with the most backward plan that makes no goddamn sense. And I want to ultimately put that into perspective about why acting like this is incompetent. So I would want them to get put up against a villain that would ultimately end up just completely destroying them both on a physical sense, but also just completely undermining how little their plans make sense in the first place. That just ends up making them just go, nope, I don't want to do any of this stuff anymore, and they just end up leaving. Maybe they end up finding their parents at some point, and they just say, nope, and we just pull a full Teen Titans Terra. They just say, I don't want anything to do with this anymore, and they're done. I know how mean-spirited and cynical that is, but the problem is that's their whole fucking story. That's the best, and the best thing you can really do is to give them an exit where they can live out, where they can actually be in their retirement. Because I don't see how being like this is an improvement, is a good thing. Because the only reason to keep them around like this is to enjoy their suffering and their incompetence, which I find that to be way more cynical and way more enjoying, way more sadistic than anything I just came up with. But yeah, let's move on to the next story, which is basically, Knuckles is
chill vibes and reminiscing.
Yeah, Knuckles is basically just on Angel Island reminiscing about everything that's happening to him for the most part.
I can cover this one real quick if you'd like.
Oh yeah, please do.
Yeah, this one's fine. This one, so throughout the comic, there's many times where the writers will try to, or usually, Flynn and Stanley will both do this, where they basically just want to try to address like, hey, why isn't Knuckles in the story? And usually the answer I find pretty unsatisfying. We've went into that in previous videos. This one I think is the best anyone's done at that, which is just simply that Knuckles is thinking about like, oh yeah, I'm on my island. He's not too depressed about it. He's just kind of thinking about it. And there's just really nice imagery of like the idea of like the emerald, like he's just looking into the beautiful sky and the emerald kind of talks to him and stuff. And he sees like this kind of reflection of himself. And it's just, ultimately the point is just basically he says like, yeah, I guess I could have had a different life, but the life I do have, I really cherish and value. Even if I'm not always going on adventures, I have been on adventures, and those adventures are great, and the people I know are great. And there's a bit of Sonic and Knuckles shipping, the more obvious than they ever have done it, which I think is pretty funny. I think the way the writer of this does it. I forget the name of the guy who does this, but I think genuinely with what he was going for the story, I think it's pretty good. Like it's fine enough. It does what it's trying to do, and I think the character interactions are quite funny, and the imagery is quite good too. So for this one, like as soon as I read it, I was like, oh wow, they actually finally had a compelling reason for why Knuckles doesn't leave the island, which is that he's not talking about why he doesn't leave the island. He's just saying, you know what? My life's pretty good. I'm really happy where I'm at. And that's pretty nice. So there you go. Yeah. Pretty good.
Yeah, no, I think Yasmin Omar did a great job.
Yes.
Like, I think, again, it's like a recurring kind of gripe that I think like most Sonic fans have, that it's just like, oh, great, we have Angel Island back. Oh, no. Knuckles is now shackled to the Master Emerald, and he's imprisoned there for the rest of time, and that's kind of depressing. And I think it doesn't help that I think before this we had like one-offs and even some like mentions in the arcs where Knuckles is kind of like dooming about his role, and so oh man, like I'm stuck here and I'm having like trouble. I think that was especially like a problem in the Blaze story, if I'm like recalling correctly, where they kind of have like a bit of a pep talk or whatever, like about their shared roles and whatnot. And I guess this is the one where I kind of felt like, you know what? Does this situation suck? Yes. Would I rather have GUN or Gizoids or some other force show up and just protect the Master Emerald in place for Knuckles? Infinitely yes. But as it stands now, as we're stuck with this unfortunate situation where, for whatever contrived reason, Knuckles just has to be glued here for the rest of time, I'm at least in a spot where I'm like, you know what? At least he's happy.
Yeah, you know like they actually landed on a good emotion for it, which is that Knuckles is he's just enjoying life, And then again they have a cute payoff for it where Sonic and friends show up and he's like, tell me about your adventure, guys. Let's talk about it. And that's just nice.
Yeah,
it's nice and cute. So
it's got like this warm, cozy, like all my friends are back, and it's just it's a bite-sized, just nice, good feeling story. And again, I don't know. I think however short it is, and maybe for some people it just retreads what might have been done before. I just think like the writer Yasmin Omar, I think they did a good job with it. Yeah. Like it got me feeling like happy. So yeah. No, good job.
Man, I think you guys kind of covered everything. I ultimately found this story to be just kind of cute and charming in its own right. And like, yeah, I'm kind of.
Well, it's for an annual as well, so like that's kind of where you want to put these types of things.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Yeah. So this ends up going to the third chapter, probably the most controversial of the three, Shattered Diamonds, which is meant to focus on Mimic, his backstory. Waffles, I think you had some words on this one.
Yes, I'll be as quick as I can. So this is just without a doubt, no fucking questions asked in my entire heart and soul. The best IDW story ever. So Gigi, I forget her last name. Gigi is the one who. She writes this one and does a fantastic job. The best way I can put it is it's just what I love in writing and character writing, which is that you take an idea or you take like a motif. I'm especially enjoying this in Hajime no Ippo, which is a boxing manga, where in that manga they will often choose like animals or concepts to kind of explain like why you should care about this boxing character, or whatever. It's 1,000 chapters of boxing, but you got to come up with a new image or a visual. And most stories will do this. The characters will represent like sand or like a motif or an idea or whatever. And so what they do for this story is they use the idea of like Mimic's shapeshifting, and every single thing in the story ties into that with the idea of reflections and masks and the roles we play and stuff. And it basically just takes this idea of like, okay, Mimic is just bad from the start, he's just a bad guy, and it just takes the idea of like, how do you make that interesting, which is that he is someone who believes in all of his heart that the world sucks, and literally like the first like 5 pages is just him moping and monologuing, like his serial killer monologues about how nobody cares about anything, nobody has any emotions, everyone's faking it, I'm the only one who really sees the truth, man. And immediately, the way that is contrasted is that as soon as someone gives him attention, gives him that feeling of love and like admiration and actually respects him, he He doesn't like that. He doesn't like that he feels those things, because now if he's able to like embrace that he has friends, embrace that people think kindly of him, then he has to understand that, oh, but I don't think kindly about myself. The whole idea is that I believe that I'm terrible and the world is terrible and that everyone else is terrible. So if they think I'm good, no, that goes against my entire worldview about myself and about other people and about those things, and it goes against this feeling I have. He says, "Oh, I made connections. I finally have these feelings. Shouldn't that feel good? It doesn't feel good. It makes me feel awful." And so the way he fights back against that is he lashes out. He kills his entire team, and the whole time they use imagery of like the masks. They give him the masks that they have in the team or whatever, and for them, it's a mask that represents like, oh, all their connections or whatever. But for him, it's a mask to put over himself and be like, no, I'm being fake. I'm pretending that I'm a good person, and I'm not. And ultimately, the way this all culminates is that Mimic is giving a narration to the audience, right? That's usually what happens in these kinds of stories. The character might be talking to the audience, right? And at the end, this all culminates where he talks about how like I am a sheet of ice. And earlier in the story, whenever he's having his little breakdown and he has to step away from the camp because he can't handle the fact that he's being loved and he has acceptance. He goes into the water and he looks in the reflection and he takes that reflection, he grabs the water and he splashes onto his face. Well, what does the water do? It reflects. And so now he is saying he's a sheet of ice. He is frozen over. He has chosen what he's going to become. And ultimately, as he comes to this final decision, he literally turns to the audience and changes the framing device, which is the whole idea is that he's an actor. He's pretending. So again, another way we talk about faces and reflections. And he turns to the audience and says, "Who are you?" So again, in the same way that the story is a reflection on Mimic, it's a reflection on everything that he's done and on all the people on him, he then turns to you, the audience, and tries to reflect back at you, tries to make you think about who you are, even though he is the one who is this terrible person. He's asking, who are you? What are you like? And so it even takes the idea of that it's a narration, that it's a story, and it's just a framing device, and it flips it to where he's literally talking to you, the audience, aka he's talking to himself. It is brilliant. It's genuinely incredible. Every single page has something like this. All the framing is really good. They do a good job of making all the side characters more engaging and more fun. It's just great. It shows more of Whisper before she was, Whisper, which is really great. We haven't got that in the story hardly at all. So we actually get some characterization for her. It's fantastic. It's wonderful. I want this for IDW always. Just make me care about the characters. Use the story, use the environment, use the framing, the beautiful image of like he's a robot or whatever. He shaped it into a robot, and then he's surrounded by like all these like mirrors and these masks over him or whatever. And then he talks to Whisper and he becomes a person again. Incredible, genuinely amazing. 10 out of 10, best IDW story. The end. Now fight me, Lav. How do you disagree?
Well, honestly, that's the thing. I really had no strong feelings about this story, to be honest. I actually think you gave me a little bit more of a positive view about it after discussing it, especially about like the visual metaphors that they were going for, especially with how they were using the frames, the comic frames and panels to ultimately emphasize everything with that. I'm going to be honest. I really do not give one iota of a fuck about Mimic, so it's hard for me to like really rip into this unless it says something genuinely stupid, and it doesn't. So everything you're going for, I actually have no counter arguments to whatsoever. Derp?
Yeah, for you, it's just something to where it's like you already weren't invested in Mimic, so therefore it's like you did a good job for what you were going for, but it would take something different for you to enjoy Mimic, you would say, or you're just kind of past the point where you could ever care about him, if that makes sense.
Yes. I respect everything that Gigi was going for with the story. I've seen some people try to bring up some issues and problems with them, but I don't problems with the story. I don't really remember them. But for everything that was ultimately going for and trying to give Mimic a proper backstory, this is probably the best we were really ever going to get. I think I saw a couple of people complain about why this was like half the annual, why we had to like spend so much time with this. But I'm like, if there's any time to do this kind of story, it is here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, I genuinely have no issues or complaints for the story.
There you
Derp?
go.
Yep. Derp.
I'm kind of in the same boat as you with the fact that I don't care greatly for Mimic. So it's a struggle to get like too invested, I suppose, with what they're going for. But I did like try. And I think first and foremost I want to say it's like it's nice that like Gigi Dutrex is a like fan artist, and now they're a full on like they wrote this, and I believe they also did like the artwork for it.
Yeah,
too.
they did. Yeah, they did a lot.
Yep.
Like, they did a lot for like their first time round, and I think that's impressive. Like that's
Well, and they also, by the way, if anyone's listening to this who wants to learn more about the story, they did a whole Twitter thread where they kind of went over like everything Sega told them about the story of like they told them like Mimic has to be evil from the start. He was never a good guy. And then her kind of being like, okay, well, here's how I kind of went about that. And then I researched like serial killers and kind of like different things about like how they feel about things and kind of like tried to implement that. And like they go over basically their entire process making the story. And you don't really get to see that a lot of times. So that's just really
that's
interesting.
nice. Like transparency, like, yeah.
So
there's like just so many like red tape seemingly, and like people refuse to. No, that's nice. That's great.
Yeah, but basically just everything about the story I just makes me very happy, from its construction, from where, you know, the art, obviously the story itself. I want more of this. I really think like at the very least give Gigi another story. I want to see what they can do. So
Yeah, like again, it's just a case of like I think it's fine. I don't have strong feelings towards it. Like, I don't even think negatively about it. I'm just like, I wish this was about a different character. Maybe, like, you got to flesh someone else out. I'm sure for, like, the people, because the thing about, like, IDW is, like with other branches of the franchise and, like, other franchises, like, people will latch onto anyone. And I'm not saying that as a negative, because I think it's like, yeah, roll, fight the power. You've got your favorite little like Lupshido, awesome. Like, I just think that's cool. But it's like people who really love like all of the Whisper backstory stuff. Like this was like a feast for them. And I'm just like, you know what? For those people, I know this is like a 10 out of 10. For me, I'm just like, it was all right. And I'm just like, don't feel anything strong, don't feel anything negative. It was just kind of okay for me.
Yeah, I can also give it a 10 out of 10 just in the sense of it does its job and does it confidently. I don't really have any like negative notes. I do remember people complaining about it. I don't.
Maybe those are like.
I will fight every single one of them in Mortal Kombat. They're wrong.
maybe
I've never felt more confident about anything in my entire life about IDW.
Maybe there is like some continuity like stuff, because I don't know if maybe
who fucking like... who
I know, I'm just
this
saying,
is
like,
not the biggest offense of continuity. I don't care what I don't care what they were complaining about. There's no issue like whatever continuity issues that you could point in the story. I guarantee you there are bigger and worse problems in literally the entire fucking comic in comparison to this. I think we'll be okay.
I will say one thing though. I will say one thing that I think is a big one for me. And this is both, I guess, a positive and maybe a negative, depending on the angle you look at it from. So if you want to pull up the meme, Lavi, that I told you to ring. Yeah, so I wrote this down in my notes, and even now, upon rereading the whole thing, I still kind of feel this way to some degree. But I wrote down when I initially read the story, I wouldn't have understood Mimic's dealio without the official writer's meme. I appreciate the mature writing, but so much text feels like it's there to be poetic and ultimately blurs whatever message is trying to be made in a mess of fancy, flavorful writing.
Is this someone you're quoting?
No, this is me. And
okay.
I feel like this is a positive because they actually went for something interesting and a bit multi-layered that it kind of went over my head with what they were doing.
It's too smart for IDW, genuinely.
Yes,
the amount of stuff they are doing in this is insane. Like again, I held back. I could go every page and break down why every fucking like pixel on this thing is perfect. Like
it's true. It's true. He did that with me like a couple of months ago. Right after this thing dropped, he could spend at least 2 hours talking about this whole one chapter.
Yeah, and nobody's made a video on it about how good it is. So I might have to do it at this point because everyone was just handed on a fucking silver platter the best IDW story, and there's like, I mean, as far as I can tell, it just seems like no, you're all blind, all your brains aren't functioning. What do you mean your eyes don't work? I'm being mean, but you know,
go to the
no. It's dude.
I never get to be positive on this show. So.
If you want to see Waffles be positive about the art, goes to the Silver Race channel in a month from now.
Yes, when I get on there, I'm gonna drown Silver Ace and how good it is, and he's gonna be like, "Wow, I thought it was pretty good." I'm be like, "You're wrong."
but yeah, it's like what I said. It's like IDW is so simple and just surface level that I was kind of like, oh, this totally like went over my head. I like with the meme, like, oh, I get it now. The pieces are like coming together. And I went back to it and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what that means. Like it is actually too smart for IDW. So
Yeah.
I'm with you. I want Gigi to do more stuff. We're getting new talent, and I think it's clear to me that the new talent deserves more roles to write on, and it's awesome that like again like Yasmin did that issue that like story before this, and we're gonna get like more returning writers like the Scrapnik off working on an upcoming like Team Chaotic stuff, and that's awesome. Like
basically you're saying like the new blood has a lot of potential, it would seem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Keep them as far away from Flynn as possible. That's the main thing. Keep them away from Flynn.
Like I am a cynical individual, and I'm like distancing myself away from IDW because it's the case of if you're not enjoying it while you're reading it, and if you're not enjoying the hate reading, the hate watching aspect of it, again, why stick with it? And that's how I feel. But
Which
like
is
I'm having some hope that maybe things are like looking brighter on the horizon of this sub series of the franchise now. Which is nice because it's nice to feel good about a brand you enjoy that to you has felt like it's being kicked around in the dirt for a while.
Fair. Actually, I think that works as a good segue unless anyone else has something else.
No, I'm good. Thanks for letting me rant.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and shift back into the main storyline with issue 76. Oh, actually, I want to drop one thing about this one. This ultimately confirms that Mimic and Whisper were around each other for a significant amount of time, and that Mimic and Whisper, as the scout and has been aware about what Mimic is doing, should know the full extent of his powers. We'll get to why that's a problem later. But let's go ahead and move into issue 76. So Wolfs and I were talking about this earlier, and I think it's a good place to say this. This issue is probably the first time I've ever seen a story actually apologize for itself, basically an issue after what it needed to do to apologize, which is both fascinating, hilarious, and kind of insulting. Like, this entire issue is basically going, yeah, we all really messed up, except Sonic. Because Sonic definitely made the right decision to be the Phantom Rider. That totally wasn't a convoluted, dumbass idea that only made shit worse. Totally.
And the best they kind of offer is that he'll go like, yeah, it was dumb, but like, dude, who fucking cares?
Lavi, it was worth it. We got a cool new outfit for Sonic. Isn't that like awesome?
Not really. That thing kept breaking if you look at it wrong. What's the point of having a cool outfit if it basically falls apart if you poke it?
Indeed.
But it looked cool.
It did look cool, but dude, that I'll say this real quick. That issue 75 cover where he's like standing in front of the 75 and he's kind of leaning on it. I'm like, man, why can't Sonic have like the swag in the comic?
The sexy swag of a blue anthropomorphic.
Being incompetent or an idiot.
Yeah,
so let's start with this. So
yeah,
this
go ahead.
Yeah. This comic's ultimately broken into, I want to say at least 3 parts, really arguably 4, but we'll start with the first part. The first part ultimately starts with Sonic meeting up with the Chaotix, and the Chaotix are interrogating him for like, why were you working with Eggman, and really trying to ask like how stupid that was. And he does the same thing he did with issue 6, like, hey, you guys were working with Eggman, and you guys are okay, so we shouldn't question it, right? Ignoring the fact that, they were tricked into helping Eggman break out of the prison that Metal put him in, and Sonic chose to work with them willingly to.
Well, and also when they found out, they beat up Eggman.
Yeah.
Oh boy. But
yeah.
Did you?
But basically, they end up having a little bit of conversation and decide to ultimately go, you know what we should do? We need to find Clutch. So we're going to go ahead and start investigating that. That's pretty much where that goes. So then we end up shifting over to Tails Amy, Blaze, and Silver, who are all kind of going through the wreckage of, the restoration basically being the restoration HQ being completely destroyed. And that's when Tails, Amy, and Blaze decide, you know what, we need to go off and try to see what we can do to repair the restoration and see if it's working in other places as well. We'll be covering that in an issue or two. And Silver ultimately agrees, but he decides he wants to go off and to check in with all the other IDW OCs. So with all the IDW OCs, and they're all grouped together to have a little bit of conversation. And this is a scene that was really controversial when it came out. Well, I want to say controversial. A lot of people wanted to really feed into the apology and go like, no, it's okay. You guys did your best. But this is ultimately a scene where the comic basically has all the characters admit that, yeah, they've been fucking up the entire time and they're clearly not built to be main characters in the story and leave.
Well,
and decide.
Well, at least it's they're self-aware in the right way.
I guess this does put them in a better position than Sonic, because they at least can admit that they fucked up and did something stupid. But the problem I have with that is, why do we need to have them be this incompetent? Like, Waffles, we were talking about this before, and you were trying to say, like, one of the stories the story was trying to go for was like, hey, it's okay that you end up making mistakes, all about picking yourself back up and figuring out what you're going to do next, which I think there's some truth to that. But the problem is there's a line between making a mistake, like painting a room blue instead of green, versus I'm going to lead an entire fucking giant war machine plane into my place of business. Or I am going to be such a toxic, abusive bitch to everyone in my team that none of them trust me with actual information, and it just leads to the group falling apart.
Indeed.
So
yeah, basically the idea is like, even if we give it that good faith of like, oh, like this is what they're going for. They're going for like this kind of life lesson. Isn't that a good lesson? The way it's done doesn't really work in these circumstances. Well, right. So I guess I would ask you, you kind of talked about with Surge and Kit, you would like them to kind of like get screwed over and then leave. Well, that kind of happens here, where every character decides I'm going to leave. So what do you think of that?
And I'm like, okay, good, because I don't like any of these characters. I'm okay with them all being retired. Like, on one hand, I'm okay with them leaving, because we've established that these guys are so demonstrably incompetent that they can get fooled by someone who's clearly a fake or clearly lying, especially. And the worst part is you cannot tell which one of these two I'm talking about, and that's kind of the whole point. And instead, they end up messing up so bad from this that they decide, you know what, we are going to disband the group, basically an arc after they officially formed, and they decide to just go ahead and leave off in different directions. And I'm like, thank you guys.
It's a homage,
huh?
It's a homage to Avengers 2.
No.
I don't even need to say anything. Waffles covered that. So,
sorry, continue.
Yeah. The whole point is, I'm like, thank you guys for admitting that they are this incompetent, but why did we need to make them this fucking incompetent? Like, this is the reason why I wouldn't want it to just be Shadow to defeat Surge and Kid that thoroughly. I want it to be, because the whole goal is when you do something like this, we should be moving the story forward. Because all this does, because by having Surge and Kid get beat in that situation by a new villain, that's progressing the story. We're introducing a new antagonist. We're introducing something that we see how dangerous this person can be and what the main characters are going to have to deal with. They want to take down this person who's causing so much destruction. We're moving the story forward and while using these guys as the jobbers that they ultimately should have been used for in the first place. But these girls, yeah, it's nice that they admitted that they fucked up, but now I'm just kind of wondering, if you're going to make characters so incompetent that they ultimately admit that, yeah, we're not built to be main characters, we do not have the competence to be here, why did we spend so much time setting them up to be main characters? Especially Lanolin and Jewel. Lanolin's whole thing was She just got introduced as like a proper main character, like issue 57, not too long ago, going, hey, I want to be the new leader, the military leader of this branch of the Restoration, so we can go out and do scouting missions and figure out all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, that already doesn't make sense for several reasons, but fine. If you want to go and do this, but why basically not even like a full arc dedicated to show how she can be competent, where you spend the entire story showing how she is dismissive, how she is incredibly condescending, volatile, and absolutely cannot has the worst time working with anyone else in the group. Why spend? And then once it ends up coming to a head where she realizes that not only her team doesn't trust her, she ends up being manipulated by the obvious bad guy. And I'm glad she ultimately apologizes, but I'm like, we just spent almost 20 issues setting this girl up, and she has no good wins at this point, and basically just goes like, I don't need to be here. Why do we waste time?
Yeah, basically it's an example of like, yeah, like by the end of it, I don't like hate all these characters and it's like, wow, these guys are like monsters or whatever. It's more so like you start to then look at it from the writer's perspective of like, well, wait, if you're a Lanolin fan, the story just basically told you like, yeah, sorry, your girl's not cut out for it. And it feels like that. I just feel really bad for any Lanolin fan, because it's like, well, man, like Flynn, you weren't supposed to like say that the haters were right. Because she genuinely admits to everything. Like she admits to everything that anyone has said is bad about her. And it's just like, yeah, like I messed up. There's literally a part where she's like, I'm going to try to like do stuff at home. And it's like, okay. And then she goes, is that like, okay? And it's like, oh my gosh, now I feel bad. You didn't have to treat her this badly. So it's a very like, it's just a fascinating issue from that perspective of like we talked about it. It's a whole issue of apologizing to the reader.
It's almost like responding to like the fan backlash.
Yeah, but instead of like being like, oh, you know what, we're gonna prove that there is value. Like even if like I don't believe you, right? Instead of proving like, you know what, like actually, I don't know, Jewel did make a good decision and she doesn't regret it and whatever. It's like, sure, I'd be upset about that, right? But like you're supposed to do that. You're supposed to be on the character's side, guys. Or if they admit to wrongdoings, you want them to have a tangible effect. Unless we're gonna get like some annual where like, I don't know, Jewel and Lanolin fix something, like that could be nice. But even then, if it let's say we give it the mimic treatment where we just go completely into it, it's another example of like why the mimic thing doesn't really work out long term. Is that like I love that story for him as a character, but again, it's just like that's only good for him. He's not able to feed into the wider world. But we spent so much time on him, and now we've spent so much time on these girls. And if we do give them an annual where we go completely into their backstory and we give them like a really emotional send off or whatever, it's like, wow. But what about all the time where you weren't doing that and they were the main characters? So that it's a confusing issue, I would say. That's kind of the main point.
Yeah, and it's not just Lanolin. Everyone kind of gets that treatment to some degree. Like Jewel basically is admitting to mostly the exact same things. Like it was really funny to me where I kept seeing a bunch of people on Twitter saying like, oh, like you don't need to be so mean to her. Like she like just did her best and that's all she could really do. And y'all can be mad at her for this kind of stuff. It's like she basically led a giant fucking war machine into her place of business. Fuck what the reason is. Do you think you're going to have a job after that? If you do that in real life, do you think you're going to have a job after that? No, you are not. And my whole thing is not just from a writer perspective, it's from an entertainment perspective too. Why, like as a reader, if I'm looking at a story and I just spent an entire year showing how this girl has, these characters have no strong traits or no positive traits in the roles that they're given, constantly either make bad decisions that end up leading to making things worse and worse over time. And then once it comes to the head and they just realize like, oh yeah, I'm not built for this, I need to leave. I'm just kind of sitting here going like, I'm glad that they're being honest about like the fact that they fucked up so badly. I'd rather them do that than give them the same sonic treatment of, oh, I am just going to be completely delusional and not apologize for any stupid shit that I end up doing. I'm glad they're honest about that, but this just kind of puts me in the position of like, why are they here? If we're like, why have them fuck up so badly and then leave? Like, what's even the point of spending 20 issues on these girls? Like, I'm all for developing the world, but the world should be we should be adding in new characters and world and development because we're looking to try to do something to explore what the story is meant to be about. And just having random girls come in, fuck shit up, and then just leave is like, why do we waste time on this? What was even the point? And then when it comes,
basically it's basically it's just an issue where it's less about like the issue itself being like negative in any particular way or like the character themselves being particularly bad, and more it's a culmination of like, okay, now let's take stock on these characters because they're leaving for now. You know, they'll probably come back eventually, but let's take stock of their time on the comic and go, hey, wait a minute. So yeah.
and
can I real quick mention Belle, or did you have something else?
oh no, go for it.
It's nothing major. It was just mostly that Belle is just particularly funny to me because after issue 50, she had the goal of like, I'm gonna save the badniks that like you leave behind. Okay, I don't know where that would go, but that could be interesting. Oh wow, there's this new comic called Scrapnik Island. Maybe she's not in that, but you know, that would have been where it would have been pretty good to have her. But you know, that's not even shade towards Daniel Barnes. That's just like an unfortunate circumstance. But yeah, so it's like, okay, is anyone going to do anything with this? And ultimately, no, we got to the next milestone. She did not do a single thing with helping badniks or whatever. And she went, you know what, guys? I really don't want to be here anymore. And like, I get it, Belle, but I feel really bad for your publicist, or bad for you. You have a terrible publicist. You haven't done anything. So like, so it's just, you know, like, it's just another example of like, why'd you do that to her?
Right, like, and these three, and we can talk about Tangle and Whisper aren't that far off from what we're about to talk about. It leads to the central problem I have with IDW. There's no goal in mind. There's no central idea about what the story wants to be about, what it wants to explore. Like, that's what I thought. Like, that's the core of why I keep asking, why did we even waste time with this in the first place? Because regardless of whether or not it was intentional to make them this incompetent or not, or that was just bad writing, that's still wasting time that you could have been doing literally anything else. Like, I've seen people try to describe this as like the filler content of Sonic the Hedgehog, but honestly, I think that's an insult to filler arcs, because even Naruto, with its 2-year run of filler content to make sure it had enough time between itself and the time skip, even that spent more time and put more competency in trying to figure out what these story arcs were meant to be about. Hey, we want to have a little random one-off about like Naruto torturing Ino with his incompetency. Oh, we want this one story about Naruto traveling to this one place to show that hard work can overcome talent or whatever. Blah 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 blah. None of them are really that good, but they at least had something of a creative focus and theme in mind that they wanted to explore. I don't get this with this story at all. This is like the most. This is what a story that only exists to make money looks like. It's not just something that constantly puts the toys or products in your face. It's not just something that makes references. It's the thing that clearly has no ambition or any sense of idea about what it wants to try to say or do to the audience, other than just make references and clear up plot holes. And that's really what this issue was doing in particular. That's why it just feels so pathetic that it ends up spending an entire issue just apologizing for itself instead of just either moving forward or trying to build on these consequences in the first place. So it's like, what are we even doing here for? Like, the other part of the conversation leads to Whisper and Tangle going, oh yes, we need to try to track down Mimic. And Whisper's like, no. Tangle's like, no, we just need to capture him, not kill him. Remember that. And Whisper's like, sure. I'm like, okay, we're just doing the Tangle and Whisper mini story over again.
Yeah, unless we do actually kill him. But you know, I kind of doubt it.
I do not think the series has the balls to do that.
We have not seen Starline come back just yet.
Yes, I will say I do think Starline is probably dead, and I do think they well, I think what Lav means is they're not going to have Whisper kill him. Yeah, he'll probably. I think he's going to die. So, I do think that's going to happen. So,
but I think it's not only do I think that Whisper is not going to kill him, I don't think it's going to be satisfying. I think it's just going to be him like falling off a cliff or something stupid like that.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And then we can plausibly deny whatever. Like, ooh, is he really dead? Ooh.
Well, and I don't even need like Whisper to like be like, you know what? Actually, I'm going to put him down or whatever. Like this, like whatever. Yeah. Like but it's just a matter of like you said. I mean, this is kind of a bigger problem for Whisper in general. Is like, can Whisper finally like be a character and do anything? That's another funny thing they brought up where they're like you know, the whole idea with the Diamond Cutters. Like they literally had like a big like page where it's like, oh, we're the new Diamond Cutters and the Ekbril City arc. So like it was a big deal. Like it was made with the intention. It was a big deal. And then ultimately the comic literally had, like you said, it feels pathetic where it has to like lower its head and go like literally have Tangle say like, well, the Diamond Curator sure did exist and then got disbanded within like the span of a couple arcs. Sorry about that. Like it literally does that.
Yeah.
It's like, gosh, guys, you don't have to be mean to yourself.
You know what? Nah, this got to be like a top free IDW issue here, man.
No, it's real. Like, it genuinely shocked me when I read it. I was like,
Yeah.
The issue
so...
where the writer apologized.
Yeah, it is so sorry.
Hilarious.
Oh, it is very funny, but
I kind of, however cynical I might be, I kind of respect it.
You're like,
I don't know. I just kind of respect it. Like, yeah, I made some mistakes along the way.
I may have burned the kitchen. I did not cook. Oh,
just like, you know what? Props.
in a very funny way. I understand where you're coming from. But yeah, I agree with Lav as well, where it's just like, guys, what are we doing? So, but yeah, I mean,
like, I don't know. I would appreciate. I would really appreciate this from some like other franchises that I deeply hate. Hold
on. Here's the thing. I'm not against the idea of the story ever admitting where they've kind of fucked up a little bit. Like, one example I'm always going to remember is in an episode in Scrubs, where they have the four main characters being brought to like a tribunal among a bunch of the senior staff, where they're trying to investigate the death of this one woman, and the four main characters were on call when this woman ended up dying, and the whole. And while it is ultimately found that none of them were responsible, the whole point of this episode was about challenging the characters for how much they end up getting distracted with their own personal bullshit and their own random stories rather than focusing on their job. Now, I don't like that episode because that's treating a meta issue
right
and turning into a character problem. Like, I can assume that these guys have their personal lives. The reason why the stories kept focusing on their personal lives instead of their jobs was because the writers kept getting distracted. You could easily just made every story from then on out focus on their jobs instead of them getting distracted on their bullshit.
Well, and also tone wise, it's a comedy series. Mostly. Like, it's fine if like the suspension of disbelief is a bit different there. It's like it's like any high school show where like they spend like 20 minutes in between class. It's like the bell would have rang by now.
Exactly. So I'm not against the idea of a story ever admitting when their characters have a problem, but this is why I'm saying it needs to be moving it somewhere. Because even in that example of Scrubs, the whole point was getting them to focus back on their jobs and get the story back on point instead of getting on their jobs and on their medical and being in the hospital instead of on their personal life bullshit. But here, the story is basically having the characters apologize for how they fucked up and go, well, I'm just going to go and do side character stuff in the background that has nothing to do with the action or the main or resembling the main plot. So I'm like, so wait, hold on. We just spent basically 50 issues setting your character up, and now you're basically going, and you haven't really done anything. And then the first thing you actually did of some kind of weight, you end up admitting that you just fucked up and now you're leaving. Like, thank you for cleaning up the cast, I guess, but that just tells me that the last 50 issues were just a complete waste of time.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think we have a better point. Did you have anything else on that?
No. So the whole story from then on out is about the group splitting up. So Sonic is going off with Chaos to find Clutch. Tails, Amy, and Blaze are traveling off to check on different parts of the restoration. Tangle, Whisper, and Silver are going off to find Mimic, and the other three girls just fuck off. You guys have anything else to add?
Nope.
All right, let's move on to issue 77. So this continues the trend that Flynn wants to do, where it's like not necessarily apologizing, but more, we're still just kind of trying to like clean stuff up from what happened before, not really progressing the story in any way. So we end up having these four saying like, okay, we saw trying to find Clutch. So they go, okay, the last time we saw Clutch was when he was getting kidnapped by Eggman. So of course, the first place we're going to go is not the last place we saw Eggman, not to any of his bases, or try to track him down. No. The best place we can go to find Clutch is back at his abandoned snow cabin.
Let him cook.
Yeah, so there he is.
And there he is, apparently. So they end up saying, like, okay, we're going to take you in. It's like, I've given up. And he just goes, I've given up all of my evil deeds. I am just going to be a solemn retiree who just looks to recycle stuff. Can't you leave me with that? And they just kind of go like, I don't believe you. We're still going to investigate, but fine. And before we get to the twist of this episode, I want to really interrogate this, because this is a consistent problem I have with how Flynn tries to handle Sonic & Co. I get the idea that they are the main characters. They are the ones who are looking to try to fight bad guys and deal with all that stuff. Completely fair. 100% for them. They are not cops, nor are they gods. This would not, whether or not they believe him for this bullshit or not, believe him on his bullshit or not, this would not be their call. And this is where it gets really weird and frustrating when it comes to how the series wants to run. It wants to, like, the whole thing about the Sonic characters is that they're an adventure story. It's meant to be an adventure series. They are not cops. They are not superheroes. They are adventure protagonists, which means that they're supposed to travel from place to place, beat up bad guys, and move the fuck on. Maybe they help a little bit with reconstruction efforts and helping out, like, with local law enforcement, depending on the story. But the whole thing is that their whole thing is supposed to just move from place to place. This is what we see in One Piece. This is what we see in Doctor Who. This is what we see in Avatar. This is what we even see in fucking Pokemon. Here, for some weird hell, we've even seen this in most Sonic Adventure stories, especially like Derp and I have been watching Sonic Underground. That's pretty much how the story ends up working for the most part. These guys are trying, for some reason, Flynn wants to write them like cops, but doesn't want to, and seems to try to give them the authority like they are cops, even though they are not cops and they shouldn't be treated like this. So they shouldn't be making these calls in the first place. So whether or not they believe them shouldn't fucking matter. There should be another infrastructure coming in to deal with this stuff. Now,
and you're, by the way, to clarify, so you're kind of looking at this from a obviously in universe, but a meta perspective of, like, don't put the characters in this situation.
Yes.
Where, like, yeah, because that's kind of your ultimate point. Is like, it's like, okay, like, if that's the case, then well, how are they supposed to react in this circumstance? It's like, well, the point is that they shouldn't be there in the first place doing this stuff.
No.
Just because at the end of the day, you're going to get unsatisfying conclusions like this, where they just kind of go, well, yeah, I guess we won't do anything. Which, you know, remove any, like, moral thing of like, oh, well, shouldn't you do something? He's a bad guy. He tried to kill a bunch of people. Blah blah. Like, remove all that. It's just boring.
Yeah, it's just
you know,
it's just really fucking boring. Like,
we just wasted time for the conclusion to be, well, all right, we won't do anything. It's like, well, you were already not doing anything. So instead of learning that you're not going to do anything, you could have done something.
Yeah. Like, this is why I keep saying, can we just introduce a new antagonist, please? Like, I remember a while ago, Flynn is complaining about Sega, saying, like, they don't want Sonic to be chasing down Eggman. This is why. Because at the end of the day, not only is it not in character for Sonic to be, like, looking to chase down random antagonists, and I don't want or need him to. Like, honestly, I don't think they should have had the story in with Clutch getting kidnapped in front of Sonic in the first place. Sonic barely had a story with him in the beginning with. I don't even know why we're wasting time with this anyway. But it just ends up in a weird, unsatisfactory story like this, where it's just like, do we really just spend an entire issue on this? Where they just kind of go, well, he did say he's good, but we don't believe him, so we're gonna keep investigating. I'm like, why wouldn't literally anyone else come in and just arrest him to some degree?
Or, narratively, if you want to give him if you want to give some conclusion for the audience, right, of where to go, what's he doing, then you write a story where we see what, you know, it's revealed that Eggman is doing stuff with him or whatever. Just write a story about that, where, like, that's kind of the like, and instead of it being, because so the end of the story reveals that, like, Eggman's kind of like controlling him, not like mind controlling him, but he has, like, this little, I don't know, like a bomb on his head, probably for, like, you know, if you don't do what I say, I'll blow you up or whatever. Or, you know, it kind of, like, influences him to move a little more. And it, like, when I saw that, I went, okay, who cares? Like, yeah. I don't care that, like, Clutch is suffering or whatever, or, like, what this means, because it's like, okay, well, at the end of the day, that doesn't do anything for Eggman. It's just another guy he has under his control, and that guy's lame. But add, credit where it could have been due. If you had a B story, you probably want to make it the A story, right? But if you had a B story where it was Eggman doing this to Clutch, like talking to Clutch, having a monologue, doing something, that could have at least shown you just how sadistic and evil Eggman is. And it could have just been like a cool scene where Eggman just gets to be a villain and he gets to prove that he's better than all the other villains in the story. And, you can have your own problems with that or whatever it may be. But like that would be a scene that adds value to Eggman. Like the point is that. But instead, it's a lot about Clutch, and then it's a twist. And it's like, okay, well, the twist is lame because I don't care that Clutch.
Not only does the twist undermine everything that we just spent the last 15 pages covering about Clutch in the first place. Again, it's lame because it's fucking Clutch. One, why the hell would Eggman now feel the need to give a shit about trying to recycle his own parts? He's never given a shit to this point, and why would he start now? Secondly, who the fuck cares? It's Clutch. He's been a D tier villain in this series, which is an F minus in any other series worth a damn. So I'm like, why should we give a shit that he's being controlled or puppeted by someone else? This doesn't make him make Eggman look intimidating. It just makes him look like he's really pathetic for any type of lackey. So
and it doesn't make Clutch look like, it doesn't feel like, oh man, Clutch really got what was coming to him, poetic justice, because Clutch is lame. So
I feel like we should have just never seen him ever again. To get strapped away.
Like no, he really should. Like after 75.
Like leave his fate unknown.
Honestly, I don't even think. No, I think we should have just like whether it's he leaves his fate unknown or he gets arrested or killed or whatever. He should have been retired at 75 because
he should have been retired from the get-go. They fumbled his introduction, Lavi.
No, very true, very true. Like honestly, he should never have gone past that Chow racing bit because, like, dude, you're running a Chow slavery ring.
They ditched his introduction to focus on Starline. It's like they should have just left him there.
Just leave him jail, move on. For the rest of the series. He plays Possum, and he's like, "Are they gone?"
Honestly, yeah. So it's just like they're trying, and the other problem is with Eggman. Why are they trying so hard to make him look intimidating in this?
Yeah,
like,
go ahead.
I think it's just the case of like I think people just really latched onto the whole like I forget what issue it was, but like when they started drawing him in like a silhouette kind of like
with like the smile.
Yeah, with like the ominous like grin from the shadows, and he looks so scary and like evil. Like I think they just really decided like, oh, let's go all in on that. And now it's like, well, he always got to kind of look like that now. And he has a gun always in his back pocket. That's because people reacted like, whoa, and it's like funny, I guess, but it's really just a case of like, yeah, they're really overdoing it. But I guess like you don't like that at all.
No, well, no. It's not that I don't like. It's not that I don't think it looks visually impressive. It's just more character-wise. Eggman's been all over the fucking shop. Like on one hand, they want to try making him like he is in Archie, where he's like this maniacal,
he's like literally like the evilest man who's ever existed.
But they also want him to be the Team Rocket joke that he is in Boom too. And it's like you can't do both.
Yeah, that's what you gotta either have like a lot of charisma, like in your writing or like your art and presentation, or you just can't do it. Like it's not gonna work. Like because it's a very hard balance.
Like Eggman is, I've ranted about this before, and I don't want to do the whole spiel again. But like Eggman has been such a wonky character in like the past like 10 plus years, and it seems again like with this now with IDW, they really want to lean into the again like you just said like the Archie, the threatening, ominous. You will not have any idea as to what he's got up his sleeve and what he plans to do, like that kind of thing, and like I think. Even if they fumbled, they've made him like very much evil. Like he caused like another apocalypse and like the Zombat arc, and it's just like they're making him really evil. I just really want them, like I just wish they executed things better. Like I complained about how like when it seemed like Sonic quote unquote tried to kill him in like the urban warfare thing. I just wasn't satisfied because I'm like I just didn't feel the emotion that I think they wanted, or I don't even know if they wanted any like emotional satisfaction. It just felt really hollow. when
Mhm.
that happened. I just want to know what they have in mind long term, because you got to keep this in mind in the back of your heads. Like, they've got Sage presumably over the horizon at some point, and I just want to know, like, how are they going to handle the wacky Eggman is a daddy and he's got his daughter. Ooh, he's so cute. I want to know how they're going to juggle that with, yes, and then I will torture this guy like I'm Saw. Ooh, I'm gonna terrorize this whole village. Like, I just want to know what they have in mind, like, plan. I want to
See,
plan.
that's the thing. This, like, as much as we were talking about like retiring retiring Clutch, I actually say the same thing about Eggman because
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
they're
Like, I don't. It's like heresy, you know. It's like blasphemy. It's like, you can't say that Eggman is the Joker to Batman. You can't ditch him. But it's like, he's been done so dirty over the past like decade, and I don't think Forces and IDW have helped, especially in the wake of Sage's introduction. Like, I just don't know what they're cooking, and I don't know how it's all gonna mesh, and it's just such a strange scenario that we're in right now that
Mhm.
I just, why not just push him away? Wait until Sage is like given the okay to be in IDW. Please, for the love of God, cook something that works and is like tasteful and just fits well. You like meshes well with what has happened thus far. It's a hard, impossible task, I would even argue. But like, just push them aside, focus on some OCs, introduce some new big bads, and you know, you can just keep trading them out for new ones. We'll do that for a while, and then just when the opportunity arises, just cook.
Do you
Please.
No.
how do so obviously they just can't get rid of him. It's impossible. Psycho will not work.
Yeah, that's
So
just the big thing. Yeah. It's just,
so
you
my
can't get rid of
question
him.
would be, do you guys think Eggman could serve a new role as like a, like, you know how in a lot of the games it'll be like, oh, by the end Eggman gets betrayed by whatever the thing is. Obviously there, and you know, and usually, you know, he'll end up teaming up with the group. How do you guys feel about, you know, because we've always talked about like, I really want this comic to start having like a long-term goal or a story or whatever. If we were to introduce a new villain or whatever, or new villains or whatever, things like that, how would you guys feel about maybe Eggman taking more of a role as like, no, he is like, he's a part of the main cast in the sense that obviously he's going to be still antagonistic towards Sonic, but he just is like kind of part of the main cast now, where he's not actively like trying to sabotage us or whatever. He's just actively in the story as a side character fighting this new villain, and that just is the story.
Okay, hold up. I wanna make a little bit more of a distinction. Hold up, Derb, let me handle this one.
Yeah, go for it.
So I'm not against it because we've seen him be in that role before, not only multiple games, but more specifically in Dark Brotherhood, where it's not just for the finales for the entire
it's like the whole game. Yeah.
But I want to make a bit of a distinction here.
Okay.
I don't think he should be main cast level. I think he should be, to keep a One Piece analogy right now, he should be along the lines of like a Buggy, where he doesn't
that
like,
could work.
yeah, like I'm totally fine. Like so to kind of bring this back around a little bit, me and Derb, Crazy Elf, another friend of ours, and myself were all kind of traumatized this weekend by Doctor Who. And one of the things I've always talked about is, while I don't think it's a good fit for that show, I love the concept that they introduced in the series called the Pantheon, which is like a bunch of random gods with like the ability to just like warp reality to their own specific powers, completely disconnected from like any type of like humanity or any type of like mortal reasoning, and being in the series. I don't think they're the best fit for Doctor Who, because Doctor Who at the end of the day isn't really an action series, and there's only so much you can really do with the guy with the hat with a kind of sort of technical magic wand to fight against a bunch of gods. But I think they would be amazing in an action series like this. And putting those kind of villains in a series like this would be would be a perfect idea and a good way to start escalating the thread and getting the story a little bit more focused. And having Eggman as another party who still is a little bit antagonistic towards Sonic, but is more specifically about fighting against them and maybe either can do some damage or maybe gets jobbed a couple of times, I think would be a perfect role for him. My point is, he needs to get retired from an antagonistic role, because I think there's only. I'm honestly I am not a Batman fan to any degree, but honestly, one of the things that keeps me from getting into superhero comics is how much they just love to continue to recycle villains, even though they have well past the point where they should have had.
I know we're on a tangent right now, and I just want to say, as a Batman fan myself, like I really enjoyed the Batman, but the moment they kind of said like, "Oh, we might play with Joker in the future," I'm like, no, do anyone else, please. I'm tired of the villain. Just do new stuff.
Yeah, and I think
I think like what you said, just like I think make Eggman like possible like side character, anti-hero isn't the right word. Like a conflicted ally. Like, oh well, I guess I gotta work with you because the situation demands it, or whatever. Like just make him permanently in that status for a while until you can cook something that might work out. And it's
then that creates sorry to interrupt, that creates distance for the audience of like when he does go back, like let's say the big story ends and we have this big climax, and then if you have another story where Eggman is just doing an evil thing again, then we've like reset. It's like, oh hey, we're back to our old ways, and like in a fun way, you know. It's like, oh yeah, we're back to some Eggman shenanigans. What god is he gonna bring up this time, you know? Or like what, you know, like it resets the audience's feelings in a good way.
Introduce a worser threat than the already bad threat, and then like Eggman has to be like, oh no, I'm scared for my life, whatever, and I gotta work with these rascals again. like maybe
like, obviously so basically it's like obviously we can't get rid of them, but there are ways they could probably integrate him that would be quite enjoyable. I mean, if anything, I don't think Sega would be against having him in like a new role, because it's like obviously you can't give him any like substantial villain role because that's going to be for a game. So if it's just like, hey guys, can we have a story where we fight some original character and Eggman and Sonic team up, and you know they're not like buddies or whatever, I don't think there would be a problem with that as far as I can tell. So yeah.
I would want to try and make sure we do a little bit differently, because that's kind of what he's been doing for like the last 2 of the last 3 games up to this point.
Right. I guess I mean more so in like a long-term fashion of like you said, where it's like he's kind of off doing his own thing, but he's still interacting with the plot, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But,
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree. But yeah, the whole point here is like with IDW, they need to let Clutch go. They explicitly just need to let him go. There's nothing intimidating or scary.
Blow his head up.
Huh?
I said blow his head up.
Why not? I honestly,
Pull the trigger, Eggman. Do it, please.
You can put him out of his misery, dude. He does not need to be here.
Nobody will miss him.
No,
nobody. I know there are 2 IDW fans that will miss him, but I mean, in universe, nobody will miss him.
Okay.
There you go. Are we on to the last story?
I think it's time. Anyone else got anything to say?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, let's head over to issue 78.
Oh my gosh! Look at look at how close Surge and Amy are. Ooh. Yo, the fans must be drooling over this one.
Yeah. Continue.
Yeah, fans with definitely not shit taste. So if I had to describe this issue as anything, it's the issue where we officially established we have no plans for what we want to try doing with this story, and have no real idea about what the plot is. Because the whole point of this story is basically Amy, Tails, and I don't know why she's not on the cover, but Blaze are basically traveling around the world to see what they can do to help out the restoration. And the whole point is there is nothing for them to do. They'll show up at a place and everything's already taken care of and fine, or there's no problems whatsoever. Everything is chill, hunky-dory. It's basically a utopia. And I'm not saying that I need every last person in this world to be incompetent and can't take care of themselves. I'm fine that they are. I don't need our heroes to go around dealing with every random cat in the tree or whatever. But what's the point of having a story if the whole point is there's no conflict? Like, why are we doing it? Like, what's the point of
like
this story?
This could be like a page, maybe. You know, like at most, like, oh, there's no conflict. So what do you want to do, guys? Yeah, like make a montage like of one page. You know?
Yeah, And instead of spending basically an entire story doing that. And this leads up to Tails, Amy, and Blaze coming across Surge and Kit, who have secretly decided to bomb the city that they're in so they can save it, so they can make themselves look good. But
Awesome.
They're fucking incompetent, and can't even do that, and can't even save the city properly. So Tails, Amy, and Blaze have to come in and also try to support, and also try to do what they can to fix the place and bring it back up.
Yeah, to clarify, it's Kit who set this up. Surge doesn't.
Kit set this. Kit who set this up.
Yeah.
And then they end up working together, fix the place. Surge ultimately does at one point just goes like, I can't fix it, so I'm just going to leave. And then Amy has to be the one to drag her back in. It's like, hey, you want to be a hero or what? It's like, all right, fine. They work together, save the place, and Surge and Kit ultimately decided like, okay, we'll try doing something next time so we can get proper praise because no one's even around to see it save the city in the first place. And
oh my god.
I think Derp I think you're going to say what I'm thinking. Go for it.
Why?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, okay, I know this is I know we usually don't do this, but I need to say this here. Issue 80 is going to be introducing a new kind of jester character who's supposed to be connected with why all the Chaos Emeralds are disappearing, and it seems like they're going to be set up to be a challenge for Sonic, not only Sonic and Tails, but Shadow and Rouge as they keep the Emeralds away. And I can't even pretend I am remotely interested in seeing what's going to happen in that. Because we literally just spent the last 3 issues going, yeah, there's nothing else going on here in this universe for the characters to actually deal with. The characters don't really have any motivations other than just being reactive to whatever random tragedies going on around them. They have no hobbies, no real motivations. They're just kind of sitting around for the plot, but the writers don't have any plots or conflicts for them to deal with. So, and we're going to make stories about that. I'm like,
well, this issue wasn't all for nothing. Remember that one background character that caused, like, arguably one of the biggest attacks in the Zombat arc? Remember him? You saw we.
Yeah, he has a cameo here to make up for the fact that he did that in the first place. And I'm like, did we really need to waste time? Like, again, that's also such a waste of time. And
I don't know about you guys, but that one, that was totally.
And this is what genuinely makes me fascinated about like what is going on behind the scenes creatively. Because even if they're trying to make sure that they're like built, because I can't see any reason for any writer to waste time doing stuff like this. Because it's not like we're even spending any time actually setting anything up that's relatively important. Like, did we need to dedicate an entire issue to establish that Clutch is under Eggman's control? No, we could have easily assumed that the next time he showed up with like a weird effect over his eyes or whatever. That did not need a whole issue to dedicate to that. Did we need a whole issue dedicated to Surge and Kit still making really bad plans that everyone else has to make up for, and Surge continuing to show that she has no idea what the fuck she wants to do or why, and establishing that this universe that our main characters have no motivations or any hobbies to deal with other than just waiting around for another tragedy. No, this is a complete waste of time. And I think this kind of mindset is why so many people think like Sega is like some weird micromanager over everything that the writers are doing, because these are so really specific creative decisions that you don't really think any writer or creative team would make, and it would have to come from some high bureaucrat who doesn't understand how art works. Fair, but simultaneously, when they're doing that, they're usually doing that to plug something, to try to benefit the brand in some way. How does it benefit the brand to have multiple issues where nothing happens? So I'm just kind of saying, going like, why would you waste time with an issue like this? Even if you didn't want to try to have some heavy story ahead of time, why would you not want to have like a gag story or some type of like, hey, let's just show the characters getting into some wacky shenanigans that helped. They're just like some fun stuff with a random character, or whatever. This,
I think the goal here is to try and do some world building, but again, it just takes up a lot of time, and I just don't. Yeah, it doesn't really add a lot. Yeah,
but it doesn't. But the only world building that happens in this issue is that we introduce another random city. That's just like,
yeah.
I guess basically
Can I go into this a little bit? Or
yeah, go for it, please.
Yeah, so I had in the podcast I do with the Silver Ace 01, I had a little discussion with him about the misadventures arc, where it's the characters going around and they're having their little misadventures, right? And the idea of those stories very clearly seems to be we're just kind of having fun with the characters. Whoa, it's a goofy little scenario where Rough and Tumble invade Cream the Rabbit's house and they have a little fight, and then Vector and them come over, or we go after the Babylon Rogues, and it's kind of goofy and stuff. Or Sonic going around with Blaze and all that stuff, and going on the clock tower and all that. Like, that's supposed to be a fun little story, just a cute little story. And I think the problem is that like IDW it's not good at doing slice of life, because like when you read those stories, you come away from it being like, okay, like that was kind of cute. It's not that cute. Or like, oh, that was kind of fun. It's not that fun. And I just think like a lot of these stories, I think that is what they're kind of going for with this issue, where the framing device is consistently that Blaze is saying like, oh, there's going to be action, there's going to be adventure, or not adventure, but there's going to be action, there's going to be conflict, and I need to be involved. And ultimately what she learns is like, no, actually my friends have things under control and everything's nice. And, when there is a problem or whatever, even the people who are kind of bad, like Scourge or whatever, that maybe, there's a part of her that really does want to be a better person. Cause she gets, she genuinely like listens to Blaze when she's like, you made this worse. Like, you're making this worse for people. And she's like, okay, well, fine. Tell me what to do. Right. And so that's going towards the idea that maybe Surge is going to change and stuff. So it's like, clearly, like, that's kind of the idea they're going for, it seems, which is like the idea of like, yeah, no, there is no conflict because the seeds that our heroes have planted have sprouted into the fact that no, the world is taking care of itself. And even the people who seem to be bad, maybe they're trying to do better too, other than Kit. Right. And that's kind of the conflict. And ultimately that's, the Blaze comes to her little emotional moment where she's like, nah, I'm going to do this for my friends and stuff. Cause they believe in me. So it's like, if that's the idea, it's like, okay, but it's not like that good at it. Like, it's not that engaging. It's not that like inspiring or anything. It's just kind of like, okay, well, that's nice, I guess, And I think that's just kind of ultimately the biggest problem with like, everything else you've mentioned or whatever, but like just when it comes down to like the moment to moment reading it, it's just not that fun. And I don't even think that's just a thing of like, we're less engaged with it, because I don't hear anyone talk about IDW anymore. Obviously there's people who love it and they care about it and stuff. But just in terms of like the general fan fervor for the comic, it seems kind of gone outside of like the DC crossover, Yeah.
And that does not count, because that's
that's a whole separate thing. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, I completely agree. It's like, and I don't blame, like, even people who were kind of like neutral or hadn't really gone all the way through, even I'm hearing from them, it's like, yeah, there's nothing really happening in IDW. There's nothing really to like get engaged with. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much the whole
problem. I've seen some people actually like drop it like recently. Yeah,
and I do not hell, I know one person in this call who's actually doing that. I don't blame them for a second, because like there's still a fascination with me to some degree, and I'm going to be honest, it's going to get harder to keep that flare going, because even I'm getting tired of this, of just how little that this story can actually offer just to be about anything. Because I've never seen a story be this dedicated to go, yeah, we don't have anything to really do. The whole point is that there are no real conflicts. In fact, we have to have our main characters cause problems in order for there to be a conflict. And it's like, what are you like? I get it. Sega probably doesn't want you guys introducing some big bad villain who's going to usurp Eggman. Totally get that. But would it be so hard to introduce like anybody? Introduce some new villains? Because if you're not going to have actual conflict, if you're not going to actually make the story be about anything, then it doesn't need to exist. Like a couple people try getting on me on Twitter for saying that how dare you try to be glad about the fact that the series might get canceled or whatever. And I'm like, I would be glad about that, because I kind of want everyone who's associated with this to get a chance to go off and do literally anything else. As much as I do rip into Flynn, I have said time and time again, I want him to go work with an actual writing staff on something that's not a franchise. Because his biggest
Like he has
problem,
his own like original plans for like what he wants to make on this, on like
and
the
that is,
servers, yeah.
yeah, Drogon has completely flopped. Even his own fans don't give a shit about it.
Which is a shame.
Which no, but that's the thing. That's why I'm saying that he needs to go work with some other writers. Because his big problem right now is that he only works to even as a creative lead, he only seems to write to a draft or to a certain to just do the bare minimum to just get a script out. He doesn't really seem to want to try to put in anything substantive, any type of theme, any type of emotional engagement in his work. Like that's kind of been like the consistent thing throughout most of these three stories, and even the chapter of the annual. It's not really trying to explore a particular thought, or a particular theme, or emotional character arc. It's just about cleaning up story beats. It's just about clearing out plot holes, setting up seeds to move stuff forward for later. The closest we've really gotten is the stuff with Surge, where she's like, maybe I'm okay with being a good person. But we already had that back during the Phantom Rider arc. So that's just repeating what we already had there. Same thing goes with Blaze. We already had this covered with her. Had this exact theme covered twice already, both with her story with Knuckles and with Sonic. And I think even another time after that, we've officially established that she doesn't need to define herself by trying to save people. She can just try to be who she is. But we keep putting her in this position over again, like it's like weirdly out of spite. Like, can we move forward? Can we do anything else? So when I say I want Flynn to go work with someone else, I genuinely mean that, because he needs to start working with other people who can get these bad habits out of him. Because he's always been working not only on Sonic, but basically being forced to be the only creative head for projects with both the fan base that doesn't do a good job of calling him out on his bad habits, and all he does is just regurgitate references and plot details back to him. Like he needs a wider pool to grow as a creator. Same thing goes with Evan Stanley. I think she's starting to pick up some of his bad habits too, and that's not helping her as a writer either. So, same thing goes for the artists and everything else. If we want to, because, like I've said before, I still think that for all the problems that people can say about Prime and Underground, I stand by what I say. I still find them to be better pieces of art overall. Not because I think that they're without flaws, but because they actually do try to make their stories about something. They actively do want to try exploring themes and their own character arcs and going through having the characters go through their own emotional arcs and just trying to be about something. Which, love it or hate it, that's what art should be at the end of the day. This is it. This is the most textbook definition of something that exists solely to make money and nothing else. Like,
well, there you go.
Yeah. Do you guys have anything? You guys have anything to add to that? Because I know I went on for a bit.
No, you're good. I mean, I'm good. So
yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
Well, and I think overall, like going forward, like as far as anything, because we wanted to specifically do this because the next issue is going to be finishing up the Mimic and Whisper storyline, seemingly. That's kind of how they're advertising it. And so it's like, we have the situation where it kind of feels like everything is really aimless, and that's a character who I feel has a lot of potential in terms of how you could end their story. So it'll just be, and Flynn's going to be the one writing it. So this will kind of be like a perfect example of like, is he going to, take this in a really interesting place, or is he just kind of repeat Tangle and Whisper, but with like a few nuances that don't really matter. So it'll be interesting to see. So.
Yeah, my bet is he's just going to do the Tangle and Whisper story again, condensed. But if Mimic does die, it's going to be from his own failure, just from some chain of events that have nothing to do with Whisper.
Yeah.
And it's, like, I hope it's good. I would love for it to be good. I would love to be able to say, oh my God, they actually made this cathartic. They actually did a really good job exploring Whisper and pushing her forward in a way that actually could develop her character and actually be a proper self-contained story in its own right. I would love to be able to say that. But I have, at minimum right now, 3 different stories that show that he's not capable of doing that. So I have no reason to think he's going to do this here.
Yeah.
So
I guess I should put this out, because this is what I would want, which is that I think my preferred way that Mimic would go, if we're going to tie into his character, is that Mimic's whole thing is that he killed all his friends because he could not accept that he had feelings of that he cared about them, that he loved them, and so he had to lie to himself and say that no, actually they're all lying to me. They all know that I'm deep down a monster, and that's because everyone's lying and everyone's doing all these things. And he kind of goes with this idea that I don't actually care about those people, and he kills them to kind of make that true, to prove to himself that he doesn't care about them. And I think ultimately, if you're going to kill off Mimic, the best way you could do that is that Whisper is going to die, whether however that may be. And Mimic ultimately sacrifices himself for Whisper. And that is kind of how he, unfortunately, comes to the conclusion that, the thing that I didn't want to be true is true, which is that I did care about those guys. And if that's true, that means I just killed all my friends. And it's kind of like it's a tragic end for him, which is that ultimately he realizes that he does truly care about them, and he has to accept that because in his final moments, he saves Whisper's life. That's the only thing that I think makes sense for his character as far as a full circle moment. And it keeps it tragic because he's a villain. Obviously, you don't want him to succeed. He's an awful person. He's a completely terrible person. So you don't want him to get redeemed or anything. And he doesn't want to be redeemed, right? So I think that would be the most poetic way you could go out for him. So that's I'm just putting that out there.
Damn, I love fan fiction, guys. What about you guys in the comments? How do you feel about that? Because personally, I think that was really good.
Well, thank you.
I think so Waffles, not only do I think that's good, I think that story would easily happen if Gigi was writing it.
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
We get a last minute switcheroo on the writing staff.
But yeah, because that really is just the only thing I can think. But we'll see what Flynn does. But ultimately, if he's got to go, I think that's the way to do it. It makes the most sense for his character. But hey, willing to be surprised. I don't expect to be. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Okay, so I think I kind of gave my closing thoughts about all this stuff earlier, but you guys have anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No.
I'm good.
Yeah. Okay, so Derp, Waffles, thank you guys so much for showing up for today's Lavicast. Thank you guys as well for listening to us talk about this. I hope you had a good time. Please feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. I am your host, Lavi Ray, signing off. Derp, Waffles, you guys have anything else you'd like to add? Where they can find you or whatever?
You can find me on YouTube with Derpida, and you can find me over at Twitter at 2Derpida. And speaking of my YouTube channel, I released a video a while ago, not too long ago, called The Actual Worst Scene of Goblin Slayer. So if you want to hear a potentially controversial hot take about a particularly infamous anime scene of what I think was actually worse, then give that a little look-see and see if it's interesting to you.
Go check it out.
It's a good video. Definitely would recommend.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep. And I'm Ian Waffles. You can find me at Ian Waffles, and I still work on videos with Low Art, making Archie Sonic retrospective videos. So if you want to see me more positive about Flynn's work, that whole channel now is just gushing about pre-boot Flynn. So yeah, if you want to hear more of that, go to that, and they're very well made videos. I don't edit them, so that's not a compliment to me. So anyway, thanks for having me, Lav, as usual.
All right, no problem. All right, thank you guys so much. We'll see you all next time.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace.